This is Bill McMinn from Makeable Bible Church, and this is the Way to Go podcast, where we talk about faith, family, and daily life, putting the Bible into practical, everyday terms. Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. Bill McMinn, Bradley Brobst, and we were talking about listening. Just listen, right? So I looked up the definition. It's not even long. I guess it's not as complicated as what maybe we make it out to be, but to hear something with thoughtful attention, to give consideration. What do you think of that definition?
Yeah, here's some. I mean, got to give a thoughtful attention to whatever it is that someone's telling you, and giving consideration to that person.
I think my wife, at times, sometimes she'll come through and she'll say, "You're not listening," and I'm like, "No, I didn't hear you." I said, and that's different. I said, listening implies willful decision on my part to truly tune you out and not listen. I never heard one word that came out of your mouth because I was focused on my computer. I was looking at TV. Maybe there's a football game going on and she came over and one sentence, two sentences, whatever. You're not even listening. I'm like, no, because that again would imply willfulness. Now that you've told me, now I'm not listening. This is what not listening looks like. All right. That would be not listening, okay? Which I'm just kidding, of course, But no, if I don't hear you, I don't hear you. And I think sometimes, you're hard of hearing. According to you, we were just talking about that.
Yeah, I have a doctor's note that states this, so yes.
Yeah, right.
My wife says it's selective, but that's up for discussion.
Honestly, I mean, as a guy, if I'm tracked on something, I just don't hear it. Or sometimes I think you're talking to somebody else, or I might think you're on the phone or what have you, and I just don't know. If you want my attention, you want me listening, make sure I'm like looking at you. Yeah. That's what I tell her a while ago. Just make sure that I'm actually like, I see you and I know that you're talking to me, and then I won't think you're talking to somebody else.
Yes.
And
yes,
they don't like it, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
James 1:19, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. And that is a classic verse. So the question we ask ourselves, it says we should be quick to listen, is why aren't we hearing? And some of it is what I just talked about. It's just distraction. It's not that we're not listening. It's just we're distracted by so many things. We didn't even know that they were there trying to talk to us.
Yeah, and we definitely have to be spending time, because a lot of us get that verse backwards. We want to be quick to speak and slow to listen.
Right.
And we have to make sure that we're going to be quick and wanting to listen. Because what does quick look like, as in quick to listen? Like, you start talking, I need to be right there, right, ready to listen.
Yeah, readily.
And that's where eye contact is a huge thing. I remember my mom pointing to me all the time, hey, eye contact. And that was good, because especially with me, like once COVID hit, it was a struggle because I didn't realize how much I relied on your lips moving. Right. How much lip reading I did until COVID happened and with the masks. And so that with my ears, so that helps in knowing that.
I think a lot of us struggled in those days, especially if you're out and about talking to somebody with a mask on. But no, I think that's part of it. We are distracted. We're thinking about what we want to say next. I think that's part of it. I think sometimes we don't want to hear what they're saying, and there's a certain amount of denial. And I know that in relationships that I've seen, you'll talk to a marriage, and let's say this is a fact. I mean, somebody comes to me and says their marriage is over and they don't want anything to do with it. I'm like, well, hey, let's talk about it. And then the guy comes in to talk to me because they won't even come in together. So then the husband comes in and he goes, I have no idea. I have no idea what the problem is. He's in total shock and disbelief that his wife is actually leaving him. And then you talk to her, well, what is it again? Because he doesn't seem to understand it. She said, I've been telling him for 10 years. I've been telling him. There's no absence of me telling him. There's an absence of listening. I think in those cases, what happens is they don't take it seriously. So if their wife says it at a certain volume, they turn the volume down. And sometimes you got to realize, no, you need to turn the volume up, because sometimes for people to bridge something to you, it's not that they don't feel tremendous force behind their words, but they're trying to tone it down. So then what'll happen is they'll clamp down on it because they don't want to be emotional themselves and they don't want to turn it into an emotional thing. So they're like super cautious and maybe quiet. And then you don't take it seriously because you think, they don't really seem that upset about it. When in reality, they say it at a level 2, feeling it at a level 8 or 9. And that's why I always tell guys when I talk to them about that stuff, turn up the volume. Whatever volume she set it at, turn it up to make sure you take it seriously, because that's one of the biggest problems I've seen is people just don't. It's not that they didn't hear it.
Yeah.
They just more dismissed it because they didn't really think, they didn't realize how big of a deal it really was.
Yeah. And I also think of too, like we also, a lot of times in trouble with relationships is we think we told them or we want them to read our minds, and no sometimes
true.
we have to also verbally tell them.
Right.
Like we can't, I had the laundry on the couch for 2 days. Why didn't he fold it? Well, he didn't understand or think of that.
Right.
Because that's not on his radar, but it's on yours. So we just have to make sure we're also verbally telling them as well.
Oh, I've had that stuff with my wife before.
Yep.
I'll say one time she had a big thing. I mean, it was a big thing, and she told somebody else, "Oh, I would have rather blah, 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 done this." And I'm like, so I asked her about it. I said, well, I heard like through the grapevine that you said, I said, did you ever tell me that? Well, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how was I supposed to know?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't tell me about it. It's kind of like I teased her about her list.
Mm-hmm.
Like she goes, oh, you're knocking stuff off my list. What list? How come I don't even know what this list is? Maybe you should like share the list with me. I'll knock off more stuff if I know what your actual list is. So, no, I do agree with you. I mean, sometimes you think you said it, especially quiet people. Mm-hmm. Quiet people have conversations in their head. This is true. So you have the conversation in your head. You don't actually tell the other person, but in your mind, you did tell them because you had the conversation in your head, because that's kind of how you're used to being as a quiet person. And you're just wired that way. And then you forget that you didn't actually tell them. The other person, of course, is mystified when you're miffed at them for not listening to a conversation you never had.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a trouble.
Right. Well, you drive down a road. My wife used to be that way, and she's not anymore, but I'd be saying stuff, and then she's not answering. But in her mind, she was. Like, in her mind, she's thinking about everything that I'm saying. She's in her mind. She's responding to it. She's just not actually saying it. So I don't know that she is. But I learned that in her world, no, she is responding to me, but she didn't say it verbally. Yes. So there's a big difference between, like, I'm a talkative. She would be more of a, she's definitely not an introvert or reserved, but she tends to be more quiet than I am. But anyway, I was reading an article, drug it up for this topic by Scott Kadersha, Reasons We Struggle to Listen. And one thing that he said is we're not taught how to listen. He goes, you're taught how to do speeches in a speech class, but you're not actually, no one sits down with you and says, here's how to listen.
Yeah, I didn't take any college courses in listening.
No, but we should, because it's a big deal. Now, I'm sure if you did like Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I'm sure there's something in there about listening and paying attention to what other people are saying. But two, all of us struggle with pride. And where he says some of the pride comes in would be you're kind of filling somebody's sentences for them. So they start telling, let's say your spouse starts telling you something, you jump in and finish it. Yes.
And I on that point is sometimes we want to already render a answer for them where they just want you to listen to them. And sometimes we have to be able to decipher that.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think guys always want to fix it.
Yes.
Girls want to be listened to. So you have to actually ask that question. Do you want my opinion, or do you just want me to listen to you?
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. And I've seen great memes on that one, by the way, and great videos on that on Instagram that are super funny about that topic right there. So I'll have to find it, dig it up, and I'll show it to you. But anyway, I think, too, it's very aggravating to me if, let's say even if Jerry does it, if she finishes my sentence and I'll start talking and she'll go, yeah, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that's not what I was talking about at all. And sometimes I'll just shut up because I'm like, well, if you want to tell me what I'm going to say or what I'm going to say, but that's kind of a, not that she's a prideful person, but it's just the kind of that pride of, well, I already know you well enough. I kind of know what you're going to say. I kind of know what you're thinking. So I don't really need to listen to the whole thing. And one great verse is Proverbs 18:13, to answer before listening. That's folly and shame. Like, you shouldn't be answering a question before you've heard the whole thing. And sometimes we are jumping in there. We are finishing people's sentences, or we're cutting them off flat. I'm not saying I haven't done. I know I've done it. You know what I'm saying? I know I have.
And sometimes we have to watch too, because like in the little disciple group that I did this morning, we also we can't be afraid of those pauses in a communication, us talking, because sometimes those pauses are good. Where if you just try to fill the space with something, sometimes it ends up not being accurate or correct, and then we're folly.
Yeah, I've always felt kind of in the old school. For some reason, I may not live in that day, but sometimes if you see a movie and it always seems like an older movie from an older period of time, and it always seems like they're very much expressing a deep thought. And then somebody's interacting with a deep thought. And I'm thinking, I don't think this is the way we are. We're not slow enough in our conversations to really have that depth. And it would be a good thing to just... I take the pauses more if I'm teaching a class and there's a pause. I'm willing to just let them think for a second. I don't let them think too long.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes.
You don't get too much time. I'll give you a few seconds.
But 5 seconds sometimes feels like a whole minute.
Right. Well, absolutely does. They taught me that in school, actually. Just when you're teaching, give time. Don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes you ask a question and it's taking time for people to mull it over in their mind. So just let them mull it over and then have the conversation. So it is amazing what things come up when you're willing to listen. We were doing a Bible study last night, and one guy just made this point that I never thought about. I'm like, what do you think, class? Well, that's a pretty good point. So we all kind of were excited about it and talked about it and said, hey.
That's a great thing about small groups. It's just chewing through those kind of things.
Like he was saying, would you do it if your sister was there? Because they were saying treat wisdom like a sister, treat wisdom like insight like a relative. And then right out on the heels of that, it goes into the comments, a whole chapter pretty much on don't commit adultery. And he said, well, maybe the thought is, would you do that if your sister were there? And I thought, no, you wouldn't.
No,
you wouldn't. You wouldn't. If your sister was sitting there watching you, you probably wouldn't be doing bad stuff. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting point. And we like that. Yeah. But anyway, so we're not taught how to listen. That's one. All of us struggle with pride. Our world is too noisy.
Yeah, and like you and I were talking about just on the way here, just talking about that one lady seeing the first car go down Center Road. Like we're so sped up now,
right?
Like we need it fast. And as I'm with Eric, the internet's slow. It's like imagine 10 years ago, like our internet compared to now. Like it's just like we're so used to quick, and that's how we also want to respond to somebody. We want the answer now, but we're not quick to listen.
Or we want everything now, too. I mean, that's kind of a whole nother topic because of financially, everything else. We see where our parents are. We want to get their younger age instead of being patient and waiting over time to like put things together. I think patience is a great thing. But he mentioned just music. Like we like to fill our world with noise. And I know I do. If I go downstairs, and let's say I'm taking pictures to sell stuff on eBay, so I'm down in my basement. If I can, I'm going to listen to a podcast. If I can, I'm going to listen to music. If I run, today I was out running on the trail and I'm putting on a podcast. So I'm listening to the news and just comments about what's going on in the world. And I like to hear that kind of stuff. I'm not one, to me, I don't know that I would ever just go run through the woods and not have something
that's a
going.
good point.
My wife would. My wife would drive from here to California and never turn anything on. Truth's the truth. I personally couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I like to fill my world with noise. So if I'm listening, even working on my computer at night, I'll have TV on, which brings up one of the other problems that we have too, which he says the ways we relax and unwind. And this, I really thought about this because he said we don't always give full attention to what we're watching anyway. So then we're binge watching and we're scrolling on our phone or we're scrolling on through Facebook, Instagram, we're watching reels. And I'll be doing work on my computer, not for church, by the way, just other stuff I have to do. And I'll be watching TV. So I'm only half watching it. Like my wife will come in all the time. Well, what's going on? What happened? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's same.
I'm not really paying attention to it.
We might be watching TV while also scrolling, and it's like we're not paying attention. And a thing too, we have two things: the TV and the phone taking away our attention. Where sometimes we need to pay attention to our spouse that's sitting right there and listen to them, and not having all this extra noise that we're missing out on very valuable time with our spouse.
I 100% agree. I think that if our kids, sometimes we're so busy and distracted, we're not paying attention when our little kid needs us or maybe a spouse needs us, and we got so much on our mind, and he'll talk about that a little bit more, and I guess I'll bring it up then too. But I like the concept of we've gotten lazy. Like we've gotten used to half listening.
Yeah.
at least I can be guilty of that. I mean, I'll guarantee you, I only half listen to programs that are on at night when I'm working on other stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to follow it. It's entertaining and I enjoy it, as I'm working, and it makes my environment for me personally a little more pleasant. But I guess it could make you have some listening skills that were less than attentive.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
But like I was bringing up about the old and new, like back then, even back in the 80s, you had a tape, you had a boom box, but take that back like it's so easy. We have earbuds that are wireless. Like it's so easy to have noise continuously, where you go back even 100 years, you didn't have that. Like people were more willing to sing, and they would sing their own songs instead of listening.
Right. What ancient culture was not building their buildings and whatever temples or anything they had lining with stars and solstices? They knew it so well because that's what they did. They were actually outside looking at the stars, where us today, we know way more about TV, pop culture than we would about where Orion's belt is or what the constellations are or anything like that. Yep. So, and I think that's kind of sad. We don't care about others, he put down too. So it says in the Bible, we're supposed to put the needs of others first. And he said that one of the things, just because we're selfish, we don't tend to really want to listen to other people or give them the time that they need. And in Philippians 2:3-4, it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of others. So it's certainly easier, I would say, if you want to look at like what is easier, listening or tuning out, I would say tuning out is probably easier. And I think about my growing up days. I think about family. I think about how parents could just be wrapped up in their own thing, and you were a kid and you were just on your own. Fortunately, I got brothers. I'm still close to my brothers, I think, because of how we grew up. But yeah, there wasn't like a lot of really supervision or paying it, because everyone was busy. Like they were just kind of doing their thing or reading or whatever it is they were into, and it wasn't cohesive. You know what I'm saying? Where I've always felt like the family should be cohesive, together on things. Well, that, if you're going to tune out, that would be lazy. And I think for some people, honestly, it's easier for them to go out into the garage and work on a project by themselves. It's easier for them to go work on something because they're used to that busyness. They're used to that. They're constantly finding something to do, but that is also then eroding into the relationship with their spouse or perhaps their children, because they're not really taking that time for them and being unselfish to say, well, yeah, I really want to get this done and this is on my do list, but my wife also needs my time, or my kids also need to hear from me, or they need to be able to talk to me or play with me or whatever it is.
Yeah. And that's where it's definitely a selfish act.
Right.
'Cause like one of my kids, they can play, and quick note, like I have a middle pitch hearing loss, and it's hereditary. All my boys have it. And I'm in the living room. I hear their mom calling them, but they're clearly tuning her out. And I know, don't say you can't hear her, because I hear her.
That ain't middle pitch, boys.
Yes. So knowing that, but he's clearly, because he wants to keep playing. He doesn't want to be like,
right.
So it
selective
is
hearing.
Yes.
Right. I used to say it about my daughter. She wouldn't hear. I call her 10 times. She wouldn't hear it. But if you open a potato chip bag, she'd hear it from a half mile away. She heard a crinkle in a potato chip bag, she'd come flying. Yeah. I'm asking her, hey, Cassie, come here. Cassie, come here. Nothing. They're not moving at all. Timing stinks is another one he mentions as a sixth one. Seventh one is physical or emotional exhaustion. I think those kind of do go together. Maybe when you're tired, it's not a great time to talk. Late at night might not be a great time to talk. The Bible says there's a time and place for everything. And I think sometimes when you want to have a serious conversation, you need to make sure you're not angry, you're not exhausted. You're just make sure it's a good time. Maybe not when they're right ready to step out the door, and then you're pitching something big and heavy on them. How about just when you have time? You know what I'm saying? And you got a little pause and pick your time. Yeah.
And sometimes though, like you also don't lead them to think about that all day while they're at work, wondering what did they want to talk about.
Right.
Like, so we also got to think of that too.
That's true. And I do recognize sometimes with exhaustion, like you just don't have, let's say if you're really tired as a parent and one of your kids want to yap your ear off, sometimes it is hard. Like I will give you that. It can be, okay, like I'm really focused. I have a lot to do. I'm really tired. And sometimes because of the weight of all things on you, you're preoccupied. Yeah. Have you ever had those days where you're truly just preoccupied with the things that need to get done or the project, or maybe somebody's sick, or it's just, there's something that hits you, and all of a sudden somebody wants to talk about something else, but you can hardly even focus on it. I just talked to a guy about that the other day. Yeah. He's like, I can hardly focus. He goes, I'm at work, I can hardly focus, because he has so many issues going on in his life, and it's so heavy. Like, I would not probably want to talk about complex things with him right now, because I know his mind is gone because it's absorbed in other problems that he has.
Yeah. And that's where I think key is we have to value our relationships. Value, and that me listening is showing you that I value your relationship.
It's a skill. I mean, we started with this verse, right? So we start with, my dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak. And like you said, we probably are at reverse at times. If we did reverse it, I'd be an expert. I'm saying, quick to talk, slow to speak, I'd be an ace. I love the verse because it's challenging, and I know it's always been, to me, a battle. It's not that I don't want to hear what people have to say, but my mind works fast. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, legit, if my wife is the same, like, she's very quick-witted. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't take her long to turn something or turn an idea. And our brain is faster at actually understanding and comprehending words than the person speaking is spitting out words. Yeah. Have you ever had that person, you want to drag it out of them literally? Like, just say it. Yeah. Just say it. Right. So I think for a lot of reasons it's a challenge, and I think it's a good challenge for us, because you want to be known as a good listener. There's a lot of great ideas out there. You're kind of cutting your own self off if you're not willing to just, I like team concepts. I like listening. I don't want to do just what I want to do. I want to hear, well, what do you want to do? Like, what about you, Jerry? What about, you guys, if you're working out, what about this? What about everyone? Like, what is everyone? Because I've never thought that what I wanted had to be the most important thing. It's like, well, yeah, I'll still do what I want to do. Trust me. You know what I mean? We all get ourselves in there. If you want to go riding a dirt bike, or you want to go play miniature golf, or whatever it is on your mind, you're probably going to find time to do it. I'm going to find time to go hike. I'm going to find time, but I still have to be paying attention to, well, what does my family want? And when they need me, then I need to be there. Anyway, we appreciate you tuning in and listening to this podcast. We hope that you have an awesome and a blessed week.